My role model was always a Margaret Thatcher,
Oh, yes.
and I was absolutely impressed when I heard that she's your personal hero too, and
Yes.
you actually even know her. You had lunch with her a while ago
Yes.
when she just stopped, was a prime minister.
Yes. Twice I met her. In 1996, she was no longer prime minister at that time. And we had her as our speaker at FEE's 50th anniversary in New York City. And so I have pictures with her at that occasion. And then later in 2002, I met her in London and was part of a relatively small group that had dinner with her. And I was able to converse one-on-one directly with her on both occasions. And she was an extraordinarily impressive woman, a woman of solid conviction. Now, she wasn't a dictator, so a lot of people say, but she didn't get everything done. Well, she wasn't a dictator. She had to work with what she had in Parliament, and but she definitely was a woman of strong beliefs and convictions, and she tried to reduce the size of government, and in many respects, she did. She cut tax rates, she privatized a great deal, and she set such a wonderful example in so many ways. She spoke always about rebuilding Britain into an entrepreneurial culture of people who wanted to create wealth instead of simply demanding a share of what other people had created. Yes, she is a hero of mine and a real model for aspiring people who believe in liberty and want to go to government.
Yeah, a lot of people know her name, but they don't know much about her personality as a freedom fighter, I guess.
Yes.
And can you please name one example that you think is really describes her personality the best?
Oh, okay. This is a story that I first learned about from a column in the Wall Street Journal by Peggy Noonan, who worked for President Reagan. And as she told the story, this was in about 1982. Margaret Thatcher had just led Britain in the successful war in the Falklands, recovering the Falkland Islands from Argentina. She was at the peak of her popularity. She had a completely male cabinet, no women in her cabinet. I don't know why, but I think she tried to find, the best, but there just happened to be no females at the time. But the men, many of them, were a little bit cowardly, and she was always trying to encourage them to develop a spine and be strong. And according to the story, just after a meeting of the cabinet, they adjourned to a room next door for dinner. And there she is seated at the end of the table, and her members of the cabinet around the table. And as the waiter approached, he was about to say something to the prime minister when she simply said, "I'll have the beef." And the waiter said, "Okay, Madam Prime Minister, what about the vegetables?" And then she looked at the other men around the table and said, "Oh, they'll have beef too." And I cite that example because, first of all, it shows that she had a sense of humor, and she did. She knew when to show it. And she was also a pillar of strength. I mean,
Of
she could say
course.
that, uh, yeah, to men of power, and she didn't bother her, and so I think that personified Margaret Thatcher. She beneath the surface of the Iron Lady, there was a sense of humor and a wonderful, gracious, caring person. But she also knew that as a leader, you have to show strength and principle in order to prevail.
This is an amazing story, and I remember you told this at FEE. I was just crushed, and
Oh,
now it's my favorite story too.
okay.
Well, it's strange how she haven't became a real role model for all those modern feminists who are writing against masculinity. This is a great story for the feminist, actually.
Oh, absolutely. It's a tragedy that reveals where a lot of feminists really are coming from, that she hasn't been upheld as such a role model by those people. Because for years, I remember before she became prime minister. You had a feminist movement saying, oh, we have to elect women to positions of high authority. Well, okay, Great Britain did that, but the feminist community, for the most part, never celebrated Margaret Thatcher. And that reveals that what was first on their agenda was not advancement for women, but rather, or opportunities for women, but rather their left-wing socialist agenda. That was more important to them. And Margaret Thatcher didn't believe in that. So even though she was a woman who achieved high authority and did it on her own, many feminists couldn't recognize that because their first priority was very different from what they publicly professed it to be.
If you want to know more about Ukrainian freedom fighters like me, visit newsforai.com. I launched this website and I'm working on it every day by myself with my team to spread the ideas of liberty in Ukraine. So if you want to look how we really live and how Ukraine is struggling for freedom, please visit our website and share it with your friends to support us.